Hi, everyone. Welcome to Travel Week webinars. We have a very exciting destination and guest here with us today. We're going to be learning about Salt Lake City, which is a gateway to the mountains and in a beautiful state, which I personally love. So just before we get started, I just want to remind you of a few housekeeping things. Questions are going to go in the Q&A box, and then at the end, I'm going to address them and get you all the answers that you need. We do have 2 prizes for everyone that stays at the end. One is an Amazon gift card, very exciting, and another, I believe, is a gift basket. So I'm going to welcome our other presenter. Hello, Michael Mack. He is the Director of Travel Trade and Strategic Partnerships at Salt Lake City. Hello, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, glad to be here with all of you, even though I can't see you all, but I know you're out there. Yep, I'm Michael Mack. I've been with Visit Salt Lake for 25 years in tourism and conventions, and I'm lucky enough to be back into travel trade these days, and we just have a lot to talk about. Salt Lake is more and more on the map these days, as you may know. We have just recently undergone a new rebranding, and we're kind of emphasizing the salt crystal, which you see there in our logo and in the background screen, just to sort of take a different look at things. And we have a video that I'm going to play right now, just a very quick little commercial. And if you want to see a longer one, you can go on to visitsaltlake.com and have a look at that. And we can certainly share any of these images or videos with any of you for your marketing purposes. On to the video.
I'm not actually hearing any sound. Is there supposed to be sound?
So no sound. Sorry about that. Okay, let me make sure I'm on my right slide. Yes. So we call ourselves the Crossroads of the West because, as you can, well, you can see from, we have a lot of flights in and out of Salt Lake, but we also are in the middle of 2 major freeways that cross the country, and certainly we're the heart of the Intermountain West. And except for Denver to our east, Salt Lake is very much a regional capital for commerce and trade and travel, certainly. People who are thinking to travel to Yellowstone generally start their tours or end their tours in Salt Lake City because of all the great transportation options. So we're very central, easy to get to. And I believe, well, I'll get to the direct flights here in a minute, but we have a brand new airport that just opened last September. So it's been a year now. $4.3 billion, only brand new airport in the whole United States in the last 20 years. I mean, this is ground up brand new. And it allows better capacity, better flights, better time, keeping on time. It's gorgeous too. It's full of all kinds of really impressive local art. We serve 15 airlines at that airport, and we have over 700 daily flights. We're offering and returning to offer direct flights nonstop to Amsterdam, Charles de Gaulle, Paris, Heathrow, and coming soon, Seoul, Korea, and Frankfurt, Germany. And I know I just read that Delta's about to resume the direct nonstop from Toronto to Salt Lake. And I'm sure in Western Canada, there's any number of great direct nonstop flights. Great local restaurants inside the airport. You really get a feel for the area and not just a bunch of chain stores, et cetera. We were voted the number 3 best airport in the USA. But the thing we're really most proud of is since 2007, Salt Lake International has been the number 1 on-time airport in the United States. Salt Lake has a real big city feel, but a lot of small, medium-sized city charm, and you feel very welcome there. We have a lot of, activities. We have opera and symphony and NBA basketball and beautiful AAA baseball. a beautiful stadium in the summertime for visitors. And the thing that your guests are going to find out is how friendly and welcoming people are in Salt Lake. There's been so many examples in the past when I was a convention services director that a convention would come to town and then we'd have our post-convention meeting and they'd say, oh my gosh, one of my delegates was a little bit lost downtown and said like 3 people came up to him and said, can I turn you the right direction? So Salt Lake, and maybe it's a Western United States feature too, but it's very welcoming and friendly, and we do appreciate our convention and tourist visitors. Transportation is very easy downtown as well. You'll see in the picture on the screen that we have a light rail train, which actually you can take from the airport to downtown for a mere $2.50. But in the downtown area, all public transportation like buses and the light rail are free. So it's a real easy way to get around. You can also see in the picture some green bikes, and we have a real good bike share program, as well as your typical scourge of scooters and, you know, the rental scooters, etc. Uber and Lyft and taxis as well. But it's nice and easy to get around. We are in the middle of building a brand new convention center hotel. It'll be a Hyatt Regency. I think the topping off ceremony is going to be next month in October. So it's moving ahead of schedule. It'll be open probably next September and will help a lot with capacity downtown, not only for conventions, but also for tour groups, because it'll just free up, you know, a certain number of rooms that might have been committed in the past to convention attendees. It's going to have a lot of great features, a rooftop bar, activity center. It's completely integrated into the convention center. So it's going to be a really nice amenity. 25-story property. And the convention center itself, I mentioned, and I know this is probably more of a tour group, but this convention center is one of the largest, has one of the largest solar projects in the state of Utah. It has 3.5 acres of solar panels on the roof, and it generates almost 20% of the power needed by the convention center. So we're very, very proud about that. And not only do we have our new convention center hotel coming up, but we have a nice array of other hotels in the city, from 5-star down to humble Airbnbs and everything in between. We do have a handful of really cool boutique hotels, and the list just keeps growing of new projects coming along. I know we're getting well, all the Marriott products are kind of up and running in town, and most major chains are finding their way into Salt Lake, and it's kind of in a building boom right now. One of my favorite attractions in Salt Lake is located just about 5 minutes from downtown, and it's the Natural History Museum of Utah. And it's really a great starting point for visitors to the state or the area to get a good grasp of not just Salt Lake City, but Utah and Western history. It's really intelligently organized into levels. One level talks about the Great Salt Lake and all of its origins in prehistory. One level is completely about our dinosaur finds and prehistory. And we have, I think, the largest collection of Triceratops skulls in the country, if not the world. And then there's an entire level dedicated to Native America, the 5 current tribes of Utah, and also some of their prehistory. And a nice feature of this museum is, weather permitting, which is most days of the year in Salt Lake, you can go up on the roof and have a view of the entire valley and see all the way actually to the Great Salt Lake and beyond. So it's a really nice amenity. They work great with groups, and they just, it's something that people can do in 2 or 3 hours and really not be overwhelmed, but can come away with a really good grasp of what Utah is all about. Right next door to this museum is a very large arboretum and gardens, which feature a lot of native plants. It's called Red Butte Gardens. And they do weddings there, and they have concerts there, and they just have, you know, hundreds of acres of beautiful, peaceful walkways and gardens and plants. And of course, Temple Square, kind of what happened, how Utah got founded. The Mormon pioneers traveled west to get away from everybody else in the country. And they occupy an entire city block downtown, which is called Temple Square. You see in the picture, the Mormon temple. And behind it is that little, much shorter silver domed building, and that is the tabernacle itself. Free daily tours, multiple languages given, a lot of beautiful concerts and activities. Really, it's all open to anybody except for the temple itself, and that's reserved for participating members of the Mormon Church. But there's plenty of activities on the grounds. They have most impressive gardens. And at Christmas time, if your travelers happen to be there in December, really it's from Thanksgiving till New Year's, they have millions, I mean, literally millions of Christmas lights decorating the square, and it is really stunning. They work great with groups. They have a couple of group restaurants, and they just know how to take care of people on buses and feed them and show them a good time at a reasonable price. And they don't pitch Mormonism. That used to be kind of a worry. They really don't. They're not allowed to. They just welcome people and answer questions. And it's, you know, it's an important part of Western history for sure. Now, once you've done the churchy thing, let's go out and eat. We have an amazing food scene. It's really, every day is growing in terms of recognition and popularity. Articles, we're becoming a foodie town. And the nice thing about Salt Lake is prices are really reasonable, even at the fancy places. It's compared to other US cities, it's a very reasonable place to hang out and dine. We have food trucks, of course. We have a lot of our local restaurants are farm to table concepts. There's a lot of agriculture in Utah, so a lot of things are very, very local. We have almost nearly a year-round farmers market that is one of the largest in the West. And not only does it have great produce and prepared foods, but it also has quite an extensive craft and art section. So highly recommended on Saturdays from basically May through October. And they are working on getting a year-round market that will be indoors when the weather's a little less welcoming outside. Of course, with restaurants, you want your drink to go along with that. And I love this quote by, we say Benjamin Franklin said that, but we have I can't even keep up with how many microbreweries are opening every few weeks or months. We have dozens of them literally, and we're getting micro distilleries all the time now too. And people, I think, are a little bit blown away by the fact that we have such a healthy beer and nightlife and micro distillery scene. But I like to point out the first brewers and the first distillers in Salt Lake City and in Utah were the Mormon pioneers. Their rules were a little less strict back then, but they knew how to do it, and it hasn't ever stopped. They don't produce anymore, but the production has always gone on. In fact, the Mormons distilled their first whiskey was called Valley 10, and one of our local companies called High West Whiskey. You may have heard of it if you're a whiskey fan. It's out of Park City, but High West has reproduced the Valley 10 along with other whiskeys that they make. But there's guys who make gin, and there's guys who make all kinds, you know, vodka, everything. And the cool thing we have is a brewery pass. Visit Salt Lake has 3 passes I'm going to tell you about today. The first one is the brewery pass, and it is a stunningly great deal. A one-day brewery pass is $20, and it lasts for 24 hours. So let's say you redeemed it at 9 p.m. on a Thursday night, you could have it till 8:59 p.m. the following night. And that would allow you to try to get into at least 14 breweries that are on it. So you get a $5 credit at each place, and that's usually a beer, or it can be applied toward a souvenir once you've had 10 or 12 beers, or wherever you are along the way. But it's a great value, and it's very popular with the locals as well, because it gets them out to all these new little places they've been reading about and hearing about to get a nice glass of beer. So I mentioned we have 3 passes. Here's the next one. It's called the Connect Pass. And this is an activity pass that gets you into 17 venues around Salt Lake City and in the area, including the Olympic Winter Sports Park, which is up in Park City. And there's activities and attractions up there. You can get to Snowbird Ski Resort, and you can ride the tram up there, and that's usually a $20 charge anyway. The Connect Pass is only $36 for a one-day pass. It's also sold in 2- and 3-day increments for a little bit more. So it allows people to really get around and see all these attractions. It even includes a free lunch if you're so inclined at a really great little restaurant called the Lion House, which is part of the Temple Square area, which I mentioned earlier. But it's kind of like Aunt Bee's Kitchen from the Andy Griffith Show. Great food and a great value. And it gets you into the Natural History Museum, which I talked about, the Red Butte Garden, and pretty much any attraction you would want to go see while you're in the Salt Lake area. Salt Lake, as I mentioned before, is a very welcoming and friendly place. And we actually got ranked, it's about 10 years ago, but rated by readers of a particular LGBTQ magazine as the most gay-friendly city in America. We have a very large LGBTQ population. We have a lot of activities and attractions. We have one of the largest pride parades in the country. In fact, we're having it twice this year because of COVID implications. One is a traditional parade and one is kind of a drive-by parade. But it's a great scene. And we also, we work with the Sundance Film Festival every January. And we have these music clubs, we call them festival cafes. But our one particular cafe is called the Queer Lounge, which used to be in Park City, but now Salt Lake is home to the Sundance Film Festival Queer Lounge, which is for everybody, anybody who wants to come have a grand time watching a drag show and hanging out. And it's just really a fun party time. We also just found out we're going to be hosting the North American Gay Athletic Association softball tournament in 2022. And we'll welcome over 1,000 softball players, and in the hopes that we're going to move forward toward hosting other events for the LGBTQ athletic events, especially because we are a very well outfitted city for softball and ski and ice skating and what have you sport events. So it's really kind of a feather in our cap, and we're very happy about that. I don't have a slide for this, but we are also known as Ski City. Salt Lake is Ski City, and that's because we have 4 ski resorts that are all within a half an hour of downtown Salt Lake. There are over a dozen ski resorts in Utah, and most of them are within an hour's drive from Salt Lake. But we have our 4 that we would like to promote via our Ski City Super Pass, which offers a really great discount for multiple days of skiing for out-of-towners. As an example, a 3 or 4 day pass works out to $118 a day for a skier, which at the ticket window would be much more. A 3 day pass is in total is $354. At the ticket window, that same price would be $524. So a very good savings. And the more days a person purchases on the Ski City Super Pass, the more savings they realize. The discount gets better. So anyway, and we also offer a junior fare rate on that that's about half. So it's a really great program. I appreciate all of you and your interest today and your participation. I see we have some questions in the chat, and I will hand it back to either Cory or one of our moderators to pitch those questions.
Hi, thanks, Michael. That was super interesting. Seems like there's actually quite a bit to do there. We do have another guest joining us. Hello, Cory Marshall.
Hey guys, how are you?
He represents the state of Utah, so he's jumped on board to help answer any questions that are about the state rather than just the city. How are you today, Cory?
Awesome. Yeah, I just thought I'd pop on and thank obviously the Canadian travel trade market and Michael. Michael, you did a great job today of sharing all about Salt Lake City. I think from our perspective as the Utah Office of Tourism, we're just super excited about Canadians coming back into the state of Utah. I know for most of you listening, you're very aware, but Utah has remained active in the Canadian market throughout the pandemic, through Walker Tracker, through partnerships with Travelweek, through working with media to continue to inspire Canadian consumers to write stories, and so much more. And I think that's going to set us up all well with accessing our gateway to Salt Lake City this winter for your ski holidays, for your customers, as well as, on the flip side of this, Utah is kind of being seen as a leading destination in the world in terms of market recovery. In the latest stats in some of Travel Market Insights, which is a big US research firm, they're tracking almost 5% ahead, sorry, of other states in the US in terms of return to visitation. So quite exciting for us. And if there's anything you need, I know Michael's contact details are on the screen, but you can get a hold of him for anything Salt Lake, and obviously myself and our Utah Office of Tourism team for anything else statewide. So I just wanted to pop on and say, you know, we're nearly at the end, hopefully, or not the end, I guess, but we're through a lot of the pandemic. We're looking forward to welcome Canadians back, and thank you for your partnership, Travel Week. Thank you, Michael, and we're excited.
Absolutely. And I just like to tail on to what Cory said about how we're kind of leading the way in terms of rebounding, partly because we're blessed with so much natural beauty and natural spaces. We have 5 national parks, as well as many, many national monuments. And so people feel fairly safe to get in a car and drive out and visit once they are allowed to cross borders, of course. And they're not closely around people except for their associates in the car, their family and friends. So it's a really great way to explore in a safe way and not be with a whole ton of people.
Yeah, I agree. Having lots of outdoor space definitely helps in this COVID situation. Agents, can I remind you, if you have any questions, to put them in the question and answer box, and I'm going to go through them right now. First question, Michael, can you paint us a picture of what a summer holiday in Salt Lake would look like compared to a winter holiday in Salt Lake?
I would love to. For one thing, it's green and not white. Salt Lake is extremely green. Actually, early summer, you'll get snow-capped mountains that are lush and green just below the snow line, and it's fantastic. The weather is, you know, it's a high elevation city. It's 4,500 feet. We do get hot like the rest of the country, but not as bad. And fortunately, we're surrounded by 6 lovely canyons in the city. So at night, it's like somebody flips on a big fan and the winds kind of come through and cool things off. So outdoor concerts in the evening are lovely, as are biking and walking and things like that. And speaking of all those canyons, there's great hiking right around the city. So accessible. And temperatures tend to be 10 to 15 degrees cooler up at where the ski resorts are, or in any one of those canyons that I mentioned. And up toward the museum, the Red Butte Gardens and the Natural History Museum, they're a higher elevation, and they're by a couple of our canyons. Summertime is great. There's lots of festivals. There's tons of outdoor concerts. The baseball team is playing. Sometimes our basketball team is playing still in the summer if they're doing well in the playoffs. So there's just a lot going on. And we close, excuse me, through the summer, we shut down our main street to everything but the light rail train. So there's no cars. So it's a complete pedestrian zone, and the restaurants all scoot their tables out and make much more space for outdoor dining. Again, gives people a comfort level, not being in an enclosed place necessarily if that's what they don't want to do. But it's 4 blocks of downtown, which is really a high concentration of where our restaurants and bars are. So it makes for a really nice nightlife scene. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really nice, just being able to stroll outside in the summer, hit some patios. Now, there's this question of Utah being a Mormon state. Can you get alcohol in Salt Lake City?
Well, as you saw in my presentation, we sell a brewery pass. Yes, alcohol. The only thing that the Mormon state, we have state-run liquor stores, or like provincial liquor stores, which I know Canada has or used to. And actually, close to 20 of our United States have some sort of state control of the sale of alcohol. But that doesn't mean you have to go to a state store to buy a drink. You go to any restaurant you want to, and you can get served. So as long as you're 21 and have ID, you're good to go. And it's actually, it all kind of got less restrictive back in 2002 when we hosted the Winter Olympic Games. You might have heard about that.
Yeah.
We do have the greatest snow on earth, and they decided to come check it out. So the liquor laws are much more normalized. Certainly, it's not a problem. It's usually people leave town thinking it was too easy to get a drink.
And what's the situation in Salt Lake City right now in regards to COVID? Is it back to normal, or is there still mask
There are some
mandates and
restrictions.
social distancing?
They haven't mandated masks, although the city actually has. The mayor has said, yes, mask mandates. The state feels otherwise. I just looked up vaccination rates, and in Salt Lake City itself, close to 55% have had both vaccinations. Over 65% have had one. So it's been a little slower in coming, but it's moving the right direction. And people are very cautious, particularly in the city. Salt Lake is a little like, if you're acquainted with Austin, Texas, it's kind of a fish out of water in the rest of the state. It's a lot more liberal in Austin as it is in Texas, and it's a lot more liberal in Salt Lake than it is in the rest of the state. And the tendency in Salt Lake is to go for vaccinations and be a mask wearer for sure. Other people in some other places may have a little more difficulty with that concept.
And Cory, maybe this is a question for you. Can you just kind of really spell it out for us what Canadian travelers are facing in regards to entering into the US and then coming back?
Sure. Yeah, we're actually dealing with it quite a bit at the moment. We actually have one of our first, I guess, major travel conferences coming up in the States called IPW in a couple of weeks' time. And as a result of that, have 6 Canadian tour operators and travel trade media, I guess, coming and joining us on a post-fam press trip. So these are consumers in their own right, and we kind of are very aware. So right now, coming into, in that case, it would be Las Vegas in Southern Utah. Or, I believe Salt Lake City is the same. We require a negative test. And testing is kind of the big thing now. So testing is becoming part of traveling within 72 hours of arriving into Las Vegas and then returning to Canada. We all know that vaccinated Canadians, of course, can now return to Canada, but testing is still a requirement. So as part of the itinerary that we've developed, we're building in a testing protocol that meets Canadian standards. And I mean, there's great websites. Canadian government has a great website kind of outlining everything that's required to return, and the same with the CDC coming into the States. I know, Michael, you also just, I get asked a lot what my top Salt Lake City experiences have been and things that I always are kind of must-dos. And for me, you kind of touched on them, but I always go shopping at City Creek, that outdoor shopping center right downtown across from the LDS square is just exceptional shopping for everything for my family, for myself. I always try and get out and do a run on City Creek Trail. Part of what you said about Salt Lake is so true. Like, you can literally leave your hotel room and run nature trails that are right in the heart of the city. And I think that's a really special thing. And I was fortunate to take my bike last time, and my mountain bike, and I went and rode, it's called Bonneville Shoreline Trail, and it goes up, it literally leaves downtown, skirts the city on the canyons, and then drops back down right by the museum that Micah referred to. And again, right from my hotel, left and had an hour and a half workout and dropped right back into the city. And so those are kind of my top 3 outdoor type things. And then, of course, if I'm there in the winter, I can never not go to a Jazz game, see Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert play. So those are always my highlights of staying in Salt Lake.
Awesome. Just again, to touch on what Cory said about the Bonneville shoreline, I mentioned, well, I didn't. I said there's a history of the Great Salt Lake in that museum, but actually you cross the shoreline trail to get to that museum. And it's basically the big bathtub ring that this prehistoric lake left that used to cover all of Utah and most of Idaho. And that's what's left is the Great Salt Lake. But it's almost the entire shoreline trail is complete. So you can really loop around and go as long as you want on a bike or on foot, and it's really a nice amenity. I have a question here from Celine Moskowitz. Can we visit areas or villages where they brew? And I guess we're talking about the microbreweries. They're pretty much all in town. I mean, Park City has a couple of microbreweries that you can visit. I know many of our microbreweries offer tours. And in fact, on our Visit Salt Lake website, there's a link that says things to do. And if you click on that, it'll say experiences. And that's kind of being built right now, but that a brewery tour will be part of that. We also have a brewery tour that's called, oh, I forgot the name. But it's a guy who will drive you around all the breweries. And so you don't have to worry about driving. But it's great. But the brewery tours are available for sure. And some of them, when you go into the microbrewery, it's right in your face anyway. The tanks are right there. You see them creating. So it's pretty much done all on site.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Okay, agents, any more questions out there? Let us know in the chat box. We are going to be pulling 2 prizes for today, a $100 Amazon gift card. And Michael, was I correct in saying that it was a gift basket?
It's more of a bag,
Okay.
easier to ship that way. Yes, with they told me what they are, but it's some Visit Salt Lake cool stuff. We didn't have any ski hats currently because we're changing our logo, but if you hang on and you win, write me and I'll send you a ski hat too.
Well, luckily we don't need ski hats in Canada at the moment. Catch us in about 2 months and we will. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. So I will give you each, a final thought, really inspire our agents. We've been stuck inside. Well, we haven't been stuck inside, but, we've been dealing with quite a bit up here in Canada for COVID. So get us excited about coming to the US again. Cory.
All right, cool. So as a fellow Canadian, I often get asked, what was my best powder day? I grew up skiing at Marmot Basin and Banff and Sunshine Village and all these great Canadian resorts. But Michael is not lying. Utah has the greatest snow on earth. My best powder day was in Utah at a place called Snowbird Mountain, which is one of the Ski City super resorts. And I was fortunate to be able to combine that epic powder experience on some of the most iconic runs in the world with a Southern Utah road trip afterwards with my family. And it was probably one of our best family holidays of my life, through those mighty 5 national parks, through some of those state parks. And what I can say is Utah as a destination personally has pushed my boundaries as an adventure traveler more than any other state for sure, and almost place in the world. And that's not only for adventure travelers. I think what's cool about Utah, whether it's the ski resorts or the parks, they have something that's going to push anyone's individual ability. So even if you're mobile, if you're a disabled traveler in Utah, you're still looked after, and there's hiking trails that are available to you that you can go out and explore and see. And right up to me, who was love like lots of adventure, and there's all kinds of abseiling and rock climbing and all kinds of opportunities, mountain bike riding across the state, starting in Salt Lake. And so, yeah, I guess those are some closing thoughts, but Utah is a great place to push boundaries, get outside, explore nature, self-drive, and Salt Lake City, just such a cool city with so much going on to start your journey with.
Yeah, I would kind of like to echo that. I absolutely love Utah. And in my mind, I just think of it as like an outdoor museum. As you're driving along, every which way you look is just so stunning, and the scenery is always changing. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful and very unique place as well. Okay, Michael, those are tough shoes to follow, but inspire us to come to Salt Lake City.
Well, gosh, just to layer on top, put the cherry on top, it's such a friendly, welcoming place with all these beautiful things to see and really great food to eat and great pubs to drink in. And we offer all these discount packages, which really make it a no-brainer. Our prices were good to start with, but then we offer the discount passes. And it's very easy to get around, and it's very, very easy to be there. And often visitors come and say, I wish I lived here. That's a convention attendee or a traveler. And it's a place you want to live in. It's very nice to be there.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today, Michael and Cory. We're going to have a few more Utah webinars coming up over the next few months, so look out for that. And we'll be drawing the prizes and emailing the lucky winners, so stay tuned. And I just want to thank our presenters for joining us today. That was really inspiring and such a beautiful destination you guys are lucky enough to represent. And I want to thank all the agents for joining us today. Travel Week aspires to bring you all the information that you need to do your job. So this is just one component of, our mission. So thank you so much, and we'll see everyone soon. Bye.